Do you want to learn how to run a $3 million a year business in public? Well, this is the video series for you. In this, I run a business that in the last month has generated over $430,000 in a single month live in front of you. And I walk you through everything that I'm doing in order to get there. Okay, so they're called daily updates, which is fun. The way that I do them is I always start by doing some YouTube comment Q&A. Basically, I just go through all of my YouTube comments over the course of the last couple of weeks, and then I answer them bottom to top. Then I do growth across my YouTube, Instagram, and products, and then I also build and strategize in public. Today, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be walking you through some personal storytelling because I want to get better at my ability to, run through some stories in my life for podcasts and so on and so forth. It's a strategy that I'm looking to tackle. This is my main channel here, Nick Saraev. If you've ever wondered, like, what is this daily updates channel? When I actually run another one that's about to hit 181K subs. And then this is the daily updates channel. The reason why I have all these comments hard is because I actually started recording without realizing the recording was off. So I'm just going to run through it again, bottom to top. It's going to take about 30 seconds, and we'll get to the first question. So basically, all of these people, as lovely as they are, did not ask me a question. They were just supporting me or telling me that I rambled. So thank you to everybody here. Tyler found me from the Diary of a CEO video. For people that don't know, I was on Diary of a CEO. Well, I wasn't on it, but I was mentioned on it. They didn't mention me by name, but Hormozy spent like a good 30, 45 seconds or whatever talking about everything that I did, which is really cool. What drawing tool is it that I'm using? Using this drawing tool called Presentify. That's how I get these cool little shapes and stuff. We can also go rainbow mode, which I'm a big fan of. I very much like the rainbow mode. Some people don't. It's distracting. And then, okay, here's the real question. Hey, Nick, I'm a young entrepreneur and I've been delaying the outreach part of my business for so long because of my accent. I'm not from the US or any country that speaks English. Do you think improving my American accent would have an impact on my conversion rate during cold calls? Yes, it would. Of course it would. People buy things from people that they like and that seem like them. If you can resemble a person that you're selling something to, there's a higher probability they will buy, assuming all else is held equal. What I don't want you to do is I don't want you to take that as an excuse to delay your outreach. Doing your outreach is actually the simplest, straightest line path to improving that part of your accent. And realistically, Mario is the GOAT, 09. There are tens of millions of people out there with American accents that are way worse than you. So, they don't, they come from various countries and then they sound extraordinarily non-American that are making probably hundreds of times as much money as you. So it's not the accent that's the problem. Okay, it's everything that you're talking about here. The fact that you're delaying the outreach because of your accent. So the problem with you is not the accent. The problem with you is that you are delaying your outreach because of your accent, which illustrates an inability to take action in spite of, an inability to take action without perfect circumstances, which is the real thing I would guarantee that's holding you back, not just in your career, but in life more generally. No circumstances are ever going to be 100% perfect. The stars will never align for everything. You will always be at a disadvantage. When I started selling, mind you, I didn't have the American accent problem because I've lived in the West for most of my adult life. But when I started selling stuff, I was like 20 years old. I looked like this, and I'll actually show you a picture of me when I was younger where I looked like this and I looked like a little kid and I had so much baby fat, and I was trying to sell like multi-$1,000 packages to business owners that were in their 40s. So my uphill battle was me looking like a freaking kid that just walked off a playground trying to, pretend as if I could sell all this stuff, okay? That was in my head for a good 6 months of my life. You would not believe the number of people that are at the same age as me that looked like even more kids that were out there selling like, 5, 6 figure packages. When I was like making excuses to myself all about how I looked really young and nobody's going to take me seriously and stuff like that. If I knew what I knew now and I could apply it back then to my fear of just getting out there and talking to people, I would probably be, I'd probably be like 100 millionaire. So don't let stuff like this stop you. You just got to start regardless. I know it's scary, but the longer that you spend delaying part of your business, the more you're going to spend delaying your whole life. Okay. There is no waiting until things are better. You need to just step into the arena and then start talking to people and start selling things. And typically, like, you will improve at the thing that you are doing while you do that thing. It's not like, I'm going to get really, 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 really good at this and then I'm going to start selling it. It's like, no, man, sell it and get good at it while you're selling it. You might get hit by a freaking car tomorrow, man. Like, there's no guarantees in life, right? Okay, Warsom says, hey, Nick, I have a question about Make. Many triggers are polling based instead of instant. Some apps do have instant triggers, but many only run on a schedule. Is there a common workaround or something to make a tool with so that only a polling trigger behaves more like an instant trigger? Yeah, so in make.com, you have two types of triggers. You have these acid ones and then you have these instant ones. The acid ones basically send a request to the service every few minutes or however long you specify, and then they see whether or not there's a new record. So, new email, it'll like poll the email server every few minutes and see whether or not a new email has arrived between now and then whenever the polling period ended last. And then if it finds one, then it'll return a record. And then if it doesn't, it won't. Okay. So that's polling. That's ACID. Then there's also instant triggers, where a second an event occurs in the service, you don't have to poll. It just automatically drips through and then fires your scenario. That's obviously what you want. The issue is a lot of services out there don't have support for that sort of instant thing. So Warsalam's asking, hey, if I have an ACID trigger, how do I convert it into an instant trigger? Well, there is no built-in way to do this. A lot of services will have webhook alternatives, so definitely check the webhook, type service name webhook API and see if they have a webhook option. If so, you can just use the webhook and then substitute the webhook in for the service trigger. If not, though, you are going to be forced to use polling, which I know blows, but it's just part of the way that technology is right now. Over the course of the next few years, we'll probably eliminate polling because it's hyper inefficient and just go directly to some sort of webhook-based event-triggered system, okay? New character unlocked, Black Hat Nick, thank you. We got commenting for the algo. Funny enough, I followed you for voice. Thank you, thank you. The build in public advice is very useful. Ophonic is fire. Ophonic is service I use. Oh, and then this is where I got to before. Hey, Nick, I wanted to ask this. I have an AI agency with 0 clients. I offer HR, project management, marketing, and voice bot services. I wanted to do Upwork apps, so I don't know which ones to apply for. Can you explain how to find applications for a specific niche? So when I tried answering this before I realized my recording was off, I started it very spicily and I said, my friend, you do not have an AI agency. You have a hobby. You have an idea. You have a goal and a dream, but you don't actually have anything material because you have 0 clients. So no amount of business strategy here, no amount of niche picking and service picking or whatever is going to help you. You don't offer, I mean, like you technically offer this, but it's not like you actually build any of these things. So start from scratch, okay? When you go to Upwork, literally just go type in automation. Okay, and then after the Cloudflare verification takes 47 hours and you see the page, just start applying to literally everything you can, whether or not you feel confident in your ability to fulfill this. Because the most important thing for you is just getting in the room with people. You have so much that you don't know about this service and so much that you don't know about your ability to fulfill and communicate and manage with clients that the big problem for you, the existential threat, is just you getting in a room with people in a short enough period of time that it validates this business model and makes it so you're not going to quit, okay? So there is no application for a specific niche here. You just start applying to everything. Okay, Sen123KO gives you a heart. How do you get articulate like you? How can you improve your voice? Yeah, I mean, how to get articulate? I just talk a lot. And then, if you talk a lot, you tend to get good at it. I don't mean to just knock you, but you need to keep in mind that I come from a door-to-door background where basically my entire life was, my ability to drive income was directly dependent on my ability to articulate an offer relatively well. And then I just articulated very similar sounding offers over and over and over and over again for like, a year, 50, 80 times a day. And then before that, I'm going to go into some business stories of mine at the end of this video today. Yesterday, I talked a little bit about my first job as like a carnival game operator, and I'm going to talk about a couple of other ones today. But generally, I've just done a lot of it. So don't compare your chapter 1 to my chapter 500, basically, when it comes to this skill. Articulation takes a long time to develop. Okay, Lions Legacy says, how's your life, Nick, after getting significantly more successful and famous in AI automation? It's great. How do your parents react to that? My parents love it. My family loves it. Do some people change after it? Yeah, for sure. I've noticed that some people are now just making everything about money. And every time we talk, it's always about some opportunity, which blows. Or they want me to be on their board, or they want me to like be involved in some investment opportunity or whatnot. That sucks, but it's a byproduct of me just talking about the money that I'm making online. I don't want to be the sort of person that like is super rich and has to talk about it every 5 seconds. It's just part of the business model. You have to for social proof. If you want to stand out in the sea of people that don't know what they're talking about, you need to illustrate that you do know what you're talking about. And the quickest and easiest way to do that is to show results that you've delivered or value that you've driven. But because of that, a lot of people that I come into contact with now just like want to use me for money. So it's not the best. It's not the best. My life philosophy, it's interesting. I've always wanted to be fulfilled rather than happy, because I thought that was more important. There's this Greek term, I believe it's eudaimonia. I believe it's called eudaimonia. I may be not understanding this. Yes, it's the state or condition of good spirit, which is commonly translated to happiness or welfare. I think, unfortunately, just as a quirk of the English language, a lot of people are like, well, what is your goal in life? My goal is to be happy, for instance. I think that's very much missing the forest for the trees. Happiness is correlated, it's heavily connotated in English to mean like a temporary state of pleasure, basically. And so you have all these people that lust after happiness, and then they just want to be like basically in a state of pleasure constantly. So I don't want to be in a state of pleasure commonly, and I want to like disambiguate between most people's understanding of the term happiness and then the ancient Greeks' understanding of the word happiness, this eudaimonia concept. I believe much more in this concept of welfare, which I think is better translated in English nowadays to like fulfillment. So my whole life goal really is just to be fulfilled. I want to say it's a deeper sense of happiness. So I don't really care too much about the temporary and momentary pleasures of life. They're always nice to have. But yeah, that's why I don't spend my money frivolously or do anything like that. Okay, so a lot of people are spamming me here. This is a strategy both to gain, some quick market share for a book, and then it's also to rank that book on social media. But it's also to try and get my, oh shit, sorry. Ah, damn it. Sorry, man. I think I might have just hidden somebody from my channel. I should not have. That's pretty rough. Okay, anyway, sorry about that, man. You fell prey to me. Apologies. Just mention in a YouTube comment that you were hidden by me. And I'll eventually get to it. Sorry about that. Anyway, a lot of people are trying to like downrank my channel right now. They're trying to basically get me banned, and that's a common way to do it. They spam a bunch of stuff. So thank you, G. Erasmus, for commenting for the algo. Hey, Nick, loved the video. I commented 6 days ago. The comment got deleted. Uh-oh, hopefully that's not from what I just did. I'm watching you for 9 months now. I've learned a lot, so thanks for that. 7 months ago, I started to provide services and get clients, but 7 months and 0 clients. Okay, so to be clear, you started to provide your services and try to get clients, but you're at 7 months and 0 clients. What am I doing wrong? I tried Upwork and cold emailing. I don't know where I'm going wrong. I don't have a budget for cold email month by month, so I'm stuck. I tried creating content, but then your points about building something first, then talking about it makes sense too. What if I post useful stuff, resources, and automation will get clients or not? What should I do? Basically, every time and ask that I have a question of this variant, or like, hey, I've tried all this stuff and it's not working and it's been 10 months. The number one thing that I respond with is, how much did you try? So how many Upwork applications did you really send? How many cold emails did you actually send? Unfortunately, and I'm going to pin you, I'm going to assume something here, which may make an ass of me, but I'm going to assume, unfortunately, that if you're asking me this question, you haven't really tried all that much. Most people that ask me this question will send 30 Upwork applications and they'll say, it's not working. And my response is, dude, you've done 30. You need to do 300. You need to 10x your expectations surrounding the amount of outbound you need to do in order to get a result. And if you 10x your expectations, or rather 1/10 your expectations for the result per unit time put in, you will start to enter a good place surrounding understanding how much work you need to put in to actually be successful in any sort of business, not just our business model. Okay. So how many Upwork apps have you sent? How many cold emails have you sent? That's the real thing. Story that I shared multiple times here is when I started my door-to-door business, I went to 50 to 80 businesses per day for a period of about 3 months. And I actually physically went in, I opened the door and I said, hey, how's it going? I'm a big fan of XYZ business. I walk by all the time. I noticed that you guys are currently doing this. I think I could make you a little bit of money. No, it's out of left field. Would you be interested in me running you through, like a quick little guide on how to do so? I had to do this every single day, 50 to 80 times. As I'm sure you can imagine, most people did not want to partake in my services. I had to do it in rain, sleet, or snow. And at the end of this whole 3-month period where I talked to over 2,500 businesses, let alone 30 Upwork apps, something like 80 times that volume, I ended up with less than $10 in my pocket in earnings from this venture. I want you to think about that, right? Did you try to that same extent? If you did not, I believe it would be unreasonable to assume you would have any level of success if this is the first time you're doing something. So massive action is the way to go. You need to significantly reduce your expectations surrounding what you get per outreach. And that's one of the big things that I see beginners struggle with a lot. Promo says, I'm curious how you post-process your audio. Yeah, it's Ophonic. Money Wiz DM says, can you compare N8N and Make for us their pros and cons? Which one is better for which work specifically and for whom? Is self-hosting N8N worth for beginners? To answer both of these questions, to compare N8N and Make, N8N is a lot more technical of a platform. I think it's more low code than it is no code. The benefit is you can build things that are more technically complex a lot easier. Does that make sense? So the more complicated the project, the easier it'll be to build with N8N. Simply because N8N requires more technical fluency to get started, but because of the technical fluency, you can do really complicated things pretty easily. Okay, Make.com is like definitively no code. There is no code involved. Obviously, it has its own syntax and grammar, but it is, for the most part, like no code. It's much simpler to build simple projects with. And because my whole philosophy is building simple projects to drive revenue, basically to apply pressure to specific points in businesses to alleviate, bottlenecks, I pick Make.com as a beginner 9 times out of 10. And it's not because I'm affiliated with either of these. I obviously have affiliate codes, but it's not like I'm an advocate or ambassador for any of these platforms. I'm simply picking Make.com because it is easier. And I have thousands of people that have gone through AI automation now, many, many thousands. And the ones that pick N8N tend to struggle more with technical concepts, whereas the ones with Make.com tend to just like get those out of the park and then start selling and make money with it. Okay, self-hosting N8N worth it for beginners? No. As a personal brand expert, can you give me some advice on how I can use my personal brand to get clients? Which platforms are most rewarding? Let me take a peek. Is this your personal brand here? If it is, I would stop doing these videos, and then instead I would do outbound marketing. So cold email, Upwork applications, community posts, LinkedIn DMs, and that sort of stuff. And then I would find success there. If you're capable of finding success using this admittedly harder marketing method, it's harder insofar that like it takes more out of you, but it's easier insofar that there's typically a shorter amount of time before you see your first result. If you're capable of driving success with this marketing method, then when you do end up having some sort of success, you can very easily take that to some social media platform and use it. GPT-5 as a letdown means nothing. I don't think it means nothing, but yeah, it's a very small iterative improvement. Pranav says, I'm feeling confused. I've been watching many videos on how to build workflows and how to sell them, but I haven't made any sales yet. If you're in my position, what steps would you take? What should I focus on? What should I avoid? The number one thing you should focus on is taking massive action. So try and reach 1,000 people with some sort of outbound messaging in the next day. If you can reach 1,000 people with outbound messaging in the next day, I'm sure you will have some sort of result. Day. I meant week. How can you earn money on freelancing platforms if you have no upfront capital and aren't able to take on a part-time job? If you have no upfront capital, it will be difficult for you to justify any sort of expense. So my recommendation for you is to get some upfront capital, even $300, $400, $500, and then use that as your initial runway to bootstrap the rest of your business. Okay? This is investing in yourself. And the benefit to bootstrapping is when you bootstrap, you spend your own money. You're not spending somebody else's money. You tend to be a lot more aware of where that money is going and how valuable that money was to make. And so, as a business person, you end up being a lot better, I would say. I've, been in business with a few people that have like raised money and stuff like that. And their general awareness of where their money is going is like crazy. I still on a maybe daily basis, I go through my bank accounts and I log everything. I literally see expenditures that I'm making and I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that expenditure anymore because it's going to cost me $27 a month or whatever. Like I maintain that very high level of granularity because I bootstrapped all of this, because I didn't take any investment money or anything like that. And I recommend that people do. Okay, guys, I'm going to leave it there for now. Let us do just very quickly some brand stats, which is just me running through my growth on the last few on the major platforms that I'm using. And then let's talk a little bit about these stories that I want to run you guys through. So 180,790. Whoa. Looks like that didn't copy over. Subscribers on the main channel. I run an Instagram channel, which is over 300,000 subs now. 321,859. Cool. And then I also run the daily updates channel that you guys are watching. Duh. And I'm going to copy that puppy over, paste it in here. Cool. Now that I'm done with that, let's run you through some stories. So how cool would it be if I showed you guys some stories from when I was starting business? How cool would that be? I think that'd be pretty cool. Where the hell's my Evernote? Open up. Okay, compile a story. Here we go. Okay, so I have a bunch of stories here that I want to run you guys through because I want to improve my ability to articulate these stories. I think the one I'm going to talk about today is when I sold my Xbox. Yeah, when I sold my Xbox. So when I sold my Xbox, the story of me selling my Xbox. When I was 15 and 16, I was hopelessly addicted to video games. I typically played shooting games because I loved shooting games a ton. Think Call of Duty, Modern Warfare. Loved COD, man. 360 no scoping all day. Real ones will know. 1v1 me on Rust, I was like hopelessly addicted to these games. In the mornings before I went to school, because my parents, they had to leave pretty early because they were both very hardworking people, owing to their, owing to our rough economic start, I want to say, in Canada. They'd go to work very early. The second the door would close, like 7 a.m., 6:59 or whatever, I'd go and then I'd go rush to my Xbox. I'd turn it on so I could play like 45 minutes of games in the morning before I went to school. hopelessly, hopelessly addicted. I play Halo. I played, Battlefield. Back then wasn't as good, I would say. I played like just games nonstop, and I had a crew in high school that I did this stuff with when I was 15, 16. Um, it consumed the vast majority of my life. I distinctly remember one summer where, like, again, my family was working and I was at home as a 15 or 16-year-old, whatever age I was. But I distinctly remember one summer where my parents would leave me $10 on the table every day. And they'd be like, hey, this is for food and stuff like that for the rest of the day. Just use it and go get whatever you want. And I'd say, okay. They'd leave it at 7. I'd, again, wake up. I'd go to the table. I'd get my $10. I would walk down to the local grocery store, just right across the street. Thank God for that. And then I would buy a 2-liter of Fanta and a giant bag of chips. I would walk back to my place with the equivalent of literally heroin for my insulin receptors. And then I would just eat that over the course of an 8-hour day while playing Call of Duty and Modern Warfare and Halo with all my boys. I'd put on my little Turtle Beaches. I'd be like, holy shit, no way, and stuff. It was like classic teenage video game bullshit degeneracy. Okay. So anyway, in high school then, one day, the summer eventually ended, and it was like the first day back in high school, and I was lucky insofar that they put my lockers next to this very intelligent young man who was also pretty charming. He was pretty charismatic. A lot of the girls liked him and stuff. And for whatever reason, they kind of screwed up because I wasn't supposed to be in that section because I was in some different program or whatever. But anyway, they screwed up and they put my locker right next to his. And I remember walking over to this guy's locker with my face full of braces. I used to have a bunch of braces, and I was super pimply, and I was kind of a little chubby. I remember walking over and seeing him just chat with some chick. And I remember thinking oh my God, I could never imagine talking to a girl in my entire life. I can't wait to go home at the end of the day and then play Call of Duty. And I remember that just making a really big impact on me because they were just, he was so cool, right? And I don't think he was actually all that cool. I think I was just a massive freaking loser. And I just remember that being the first little nugget of wait a second, because up until then I had my lockers next to all my video game friends, and we just play video games and talk about video games all day. I remember that being the first nugget of my life, wait a second, I want something more than just this. I think that I could actually have a way cooler and funner and more enjoyable life. So what I ended up doing over the course of the next couple of weeks, every time I go to his locker, eventually I mustered up the courage to say hello to him, which is that was pretty big for me at the time, probably because my breath smelled like ass and I had braces across my face and I was all pimply and stuff like that. I was like, hello. What I ended up doing was I just, introduced myself to him, and I was shaking in my boots. I was so nervous and anxious about talking to this kid who was just, in my eyes, he was golden goose egg kid. And he responded, and he was really, really cool. He was like, hey, how's it going? I've seen you around and stuff like that. What's your name? And I was super nervous. When I got home that day after introducing myself to this kid, after spending a whole week mustering up my courage just to say hello to somebody that I didn't know, who wasn't in my social clique, I immediately took my Xbox and I put it on a Craigslist and I sold it within a 24-hour period, and I got rid of it because I realized that was the thing that was holding me back, my addiction essentially to playing video games as a young kid. And I said, if there's one thing I want to do in life, it's I want to be like that guy. So I wasn't asking for much, let me tell you. Was not asking for much to be that guy. But I was that was one thing I want in my life. It's to be that guy. So what a silly ass chip on your shoulder, huh? What a silly ass first little initial thing of self-improvement. I just wanted to be the guy who is socially acute enough to be able to have a conversation with a kid he's never met, to be able to actually look into a chick's eyes without literally being paralyzed and wanting to die, to be able to, I don't know, just, be cool. And I think every young man wants this at some level. I think basically every young man wants this at some level. It's just a matter of I guess proximity and chance, to be put in a situation where you see a better life and a way to live that would be more enjoyable and whatnot, and then actually have serendipity put you in that situation enough so that you could see, what that life would actually look like. And so I know this is really stupid, and you guys have probably just been shaking your heads the whole time, and you're like, "My goodness, Nick, what a silly young man you are that you even remember something like this." But that made a really, really big impact on me, and I actually think about that pretty often when I'm designing Maker School, when I'm designing programs like social groups and networks and stuff like that. The reason being because when I was a kid that was surrounded by a bunch of fellow video game playing guys that just wanted to do Call of Duty and Halo all day, as fun as it was, and as much fun as I was having, like on some deep fundamental level, I was dissatisfied with my life. The one thing that like initiated the change was me being put next to somebody that had a bunch of other stuff that I wanted. And so when you join an online community, when you start watching, let's say, content from people that have some stuff that you want, I think you're doing the exact same thing to some level that I had going on with me when I was put next to that young man. I think like by force of just how human beings are, we're consensus animals. And when you see something that you want and you see it every day, you're a lot more likely to actually go out there and achieve it. After I quit the video games, after I sold the Xbox, I remember my father, who up until that point in time was just obviously pretty disappointed. And this degenerate son just playing video games all day and not taking showers. I remember him, I remember going up to him, and he was going to the gym, like a few blocks from our house at the time. And I was like, "Hey, could you take me to the gym, Dad?" And my dad was just like so happy that I asked him to take me to the gym. Like, he initially had floated the idea by me multiple times, and I was always very resistant to go to the gym with it. But then I was like, "Hey, can we go to the gym?" So, my young father taught me how to do the tricep push downs. He taught me how to do the bench press. Granted, I'll say the form was not exactly perfect back then. And I was just doing mostly like isolation exercises, like bicep curls and stuff. But anyway, the very fact that like I started into that culture, that flywheel of self-improvement, knowing that I wanted to be better by some very shallow, silly chip on my shoulder, just seeing some kid that looked cool wanting to be him, I feel like is the only justification you need to want to improve yourself. Literally just like see something that you want. That's enough. So no pride here. There's no amazing, fantastical, deep nugget of like desire to change the world. I think that really sprouts up overnight. I think a lot of the time human beings are motivated by very shallow things like that. And I wanted to share mine with you guys today. So yeah, anyway, that's that. Hopefully you guys appreciated today's video. I will catch all y'all in the next one. Have a lovely rest of the day. And to any of my fellow video game playing COD, I don't even know, we're on a Call of Duty 12. Just know that if you continuously put yourself in situations where you see a bunch of people achieve things that you want that aren't related to video games, eventually you will trend in that direction. It's just a matter of time. Okay, have a lovely rest of the day.